Hey folks, it's George Leoniak and welcome to New Geometry. Today I've got an exciting video planned for you. It's going to be a little bit more expansion on the dodecahedron. I posted a video recently about John dodecahedron is not ancient, and it really talks a lot about correcting the dodecahedron into a 5-proportion dodecahedron and just how expansive that can be. Well, because of that video, I was given a little gift from that week of working on that video to really see how that correction of that dodecahedron is going to lead to a mystery form that got created, all based on classic sacred geometry principles. So stick with me in this one. I'm going to leave you a little bit of a mystery. Maybe the title will already tell you what it is. But for the most part, I'm going to leave you a little bit mysterious because as you see how this dodecahedron correction leads to this amazing compound. So let's just jump into the slideshow. I have also a 3D model that I'll show you, some Zone tools, 3D modeling software, to just talk about the importance of this dodecahedron correction, which I really am experiencing through my own personal, hands-on experience through building and drawing sacred geometry and contemplating it. That this, just reiterating the other video, and but I continue to talk about this little correction of getting this pentagon face from this traditional Metatron's cube to an accurate 5-proportion pentagon while it's angled is going to lead to a big breakthrough for many people in sacred geometry, that you'll start to do things that you'll only see geometers in universities really doing, or people like HSM Coxeter, some of the greatest mathematician geometers of our era. You'll be creating stuff like that and going back to try and discover what it is you're creating, because that's how the sacred geometry of the seed of life with these golden ratio circles operates. It's a key to kind of unlock your potential in exploration with sacred geometry to discover and create new amazing forms that will populate our environment and increase people's awareness to sacred geometry. Other than this kind of is all that most people think. This contains all the Platonic solids of creation. As I've demonstrated in other videos, that's not the case. So here is our, what I left off with in the last video is, just showing that once that dodecahedron was corrected in that way, with the 5 proportion through the golden circles. Here's a different golden circle, that I'm working with. You can play with these circles in a lot of ways. But basically, I wanted to show that you can create a compound of dodecahedron together, a cluster of them, let's say. We're clustering these together, and now they're actually creating an icosahedron. There are 12 of these. So we've got basically an icosahedron constructed out of dodecahedron, which can be stellated. Check out the last video, Zonepad dodecahedron. Is not ancient video, and I kind of take this all apart and show you all the interconnectivity in that golden vector matrix. Okay, now that's all I need to say on that one, because we're going to get into the mystery form. So a couple days over on Facebook, on my personal page and New Geometers Facebook group, I posted this kind of mysterious form, the light in the dark picture, or who turned the lights out. Some people that look like very Halloween-y type of expression here. So I'm going to go into what is actually going on here. It's amazing, amazing construction. And you probably might be wondering, well, you can see it maybe have some dodecahedron action going on here, but really, why am I going to go into this in great detail? Well, let me turn the lights on. Here's the circle pattern of the mysterious form. This is the line drawing a mysterious form. Now, you might look at that and say, wow, I was joking a little bit saying that, I can't wait to be getting involved with crop circle construction and things like that, because, these are some amazing crop circle designs that can be created from these patterns of these circles overlapping here. But, if I'm looking at this, this form here, it's the circles are really created in a way, these are all golden ratio circles, and they're being utilized in very specific points. They're part of a pattern that is giving you these vertices. So every single circle in this, which is golden ratio, is having a purpose to create the form. Okay, so it's not like they're just randomly placed down here. They're actually getting the vertices for this because this is a tricky form to create. Now, there's a lot more going on in this form than just the outer hull, the outer structure that I'm showing you. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but I'm starting from the outer shell of it, and we're going to work inward to kind of show you a little bit more of what that looks like here. So check this out. Now we've got the form removed, and now we have, you could see that it's, got these squares, and these are just regular squares. And it's got the pentagon in the middle, and then these kind of narrowed, they're not actually golden triangles, they're narrowed, they're kind of fitting in the gap between. So we've got a series of squares going around the form along with the star points. It's very reminiscent of the geohedron model that I created, very connected to the kind of Earth grid model as well. So then here's the circle pattern once again. Now, to find the circles in this, I have to do a lot of line construction and really kind of work and hunt around. So it's not surprising that, geometers in the past that didn't have this capability of the iPad application, the quick and easiness of me able to draw this up by hand. All this is hand drawn. I mean, it's done with the iPad, but I use a stylus to draw it. So I can transfer this over to a drawing and show anybody the steps of how to do this, like I do in all my apprenticeships, drawing complex things like this. It's a simpler pattern because once you get the basic down, you just repeat the pattern in this regular seed of life pattern. So yes, this does connect to the golden circle seed of life, which I talk about in many, many of my videos, at least for the past 8 or so months, 9 months. And, it's a pattern that slowly I had to discover and see the connections within. And here was the new discovery as I worked with this form, was that I actually found that I could take the whole golden circle seed of life pattern, right? The whole golden circles, and I could nest the golden circles in any of the circles throughout the whole form. And I could do that in a doubling sequence. So for instance, if the large diameter of the big circle is 8 inches, well, this next one that's going to nest inside here was going to be the 4-inch one of golden circles. And then also I could take another layer down and keep going in to 2. Oh, I took the 1. Here's the 2. And there would have been 1 in the middle. So, these are going to nest all inside. This one's kind of hanging out on its own because it keeps getting smaller and smaller. So there's that's new for me now too. There's a lot more that can even be done with that. And, it's getting closer and closer to looking like just the concentric circles on, this woven fabric of interconnected circles. So, of course, I like to take things to a next level, let's just say. And I say, well, let's just see if I could put this in all of the 7 circles, right? And get that total fractality going on. Now, meanwhile, remember, the golden circle ratio is maintained within each of these seeds of life through this. But now I'm actually entered this into the doubling sequence of 1 + 1, 2, 2 and 2, 4, 4 and 4, 8, 8, 16, so on. So now we're integrating that into this pattern here. Now we're getting this wild mosaic of overlapping circles. And I mean, there's probably so many points of connections of forms that can be found in this, or at least reproducing these dodecahedron and icosahedron and all the Platonic solids and all the other forms that I showed in Metatron's tetraplex can be done at all these scales in a doubling sequence and in phi ratio sequence, all mixed into this. So at that point, it's like, let's just stick to one drawing because it's so complex to keep going, but I probably will. So I also in the 3D modeling software, the Zonepad software, which operates with the Zone, the Zone tools are these. So here's your regular cube octahedron. I know how these work well, so this application of Zonepad allows me to construct the forms, and I could construct this in there. And I have to just give a little shout out over here to Franz. He just joined New Geometers right around the same time I posted this form. And he just took it upon himself, really from looking at the mystery form itself. I didn't have to show him any other turn on the lights for him to get started with this. But all of a sudden, he was able to just kind of start piecing this together. All on his own. He could figure out the mathematics of it, which I just talked to him the other day. I wrote back, and I just wanted to. I started doing the math on myself. But this pentagon edge if this is a 1-inch edge, the cool thing about this is the square that here, those would be a root 2. So we would have, this would be 0.618 here, and that would be root 2. So. And this distance here would be 2 inches along here. So root 2 is 1.414, sacred mathematics. And then this pentagon edge would be 0.618, and halfway point here would be 1 inch to the middle of the square. And that's the importance of the scale and variance, because I started to construct this out of Zone tools myself, because you actually can. Except I'll show you in a minute how you run into a little bit of problem because the connectors don't work. But the scale and variance allows me to take any form, dimension size, and just say, well, if this pentagon edge is 0.618, what's going to happen to this edge over here? And that's how I can discover that it's one of the sacred roots of square root of 2. So this form is integration of the 2 of those together, 0.618 edge, along with the square root of 2 edge. So Franz just went out about this on his own. And he's got a book that's coming out soon. It's going to be in German, but he said he has an English translation coming. And it's all about Leonardo and his Leonardo workshops, I believe Franz calls it. He does programs and everything. So check out some of his material. I was just thrilled to see that he just started piecing together this, and we had a cool exchange about what was going on with the vertices within this, which I'll get to in a moment. Okay, so also check out the New Geometers Facebook group. Feel free to join there. It's really picking up. I'm just so excited to see all the geometers jumping in, new people, beginners, and mixing with the people quite experienced. A lot of awesome posts and conversations going on there. So check that out. Okay, well, now let's get back to the dodecahedron, which we started off with kind of way back at the beginning. So let's kind of show how this is now going to integrate off of this main dodecahedron. So, this dodecahedron is easily drawn within here. You don't even need any of these other little small circles going on in here. But now here's the unveil. We're going to take this one dodecahedron and we're going to put a bunch more around it. We're going to actually construct a compound of dodecahedron. Now, before I did this, I've heard of a 5-compound dodecahedron and a 5-compound icosahedron. I never even looked at their pictures. I didn't know what they were. I'm just building from the geometry on its own. But really, I was kind of at the 5 cubes in the dodeca. I've talked so much about 5 cubes in the dodecahedron, right? So all of a sudden, we're going to take a dodecahedron, one of them, and we're going to put a bunch more around this. So I know that this is so busy in here, but I'm going to walk you through piece by piece where all these dodecahedron are. My next slide is going to show you. So you might want to pause the video because this is like a color-coded dodecahedron cluster. Now, this is giving you all the vertices of what I call the mystery form. It's a 6 dodecahedron clustered around that are what is creating this awesome, cool-looking structure with these root 2 squares and the 0.618 pentagon. So, if we're looking at the hull of this on its own, we might miss the fact that these vertices are shared by a numerous dodecahedron, 6 of them in total. And So let's just take one of them, for example. This was the base one, the one in the drawing that's just straight on. Now that's the blue one, and I'm going to zoom in on these photos in a little bit. So each of these are in there. The red one, the red line is coming here and tilted. And this is a total new view of the dodecahedron here, right? So this isn't one I've never drawn before, but by following out the vertices of where they all link up and getting everything, making sure that these pentagon faces are within 5 proportion, which is so important for even attempting to draw this. But the only way you can even attempt to draw this without using a computer program, which you might not have to use sacred geometry like I do it with the compass and straight edge. I don't really use a compass and straight edge. I mean, I do on my drawing pad, but using those techniques, it could be like a compass and straight edge as I'm just drawing circles, right? And drawing lines and working it out. Like, you can't really attempt to do this without this golden circle pattern. I mean, I don't really think it's possible to get a drawing of this accurate, because the golden circles are the foundation of the new geometry, KNEW geometry. It's like, if you're doing sacred geometry, include golden circles and just see what happens. Now, it's easy to get the golden circles. Some of my other videos talk about that. It's not even, it's like one extra step you have to do, a couple extra steps, and change your compass and you're good to go. But really, at what I guess the heart of what I'm discovering with KNEW geometry here is the integration of the 5 circles, which is really kind of the main thing that was left out in my journey when I was in my process of remembering. And I would still am in the deep process of remembering the sacred geometry. But that was the catalyst to create forms like this without ever looking at them. And that's the important part that sacred geometry contains, especially when it contains those root sacred principle ratios that are all in there. Then if all you have is golden circles and you're connecting lines and building forms, you'll be able to do this. You don't have to have anybody else tell you. So the pattern itself contains all the knowledge and wisdom that you need. So here is the, let's walk through this step just a little, form a little bit more here. So when I first discovered this, I did this drawing in the Zonepad, connecting on making the form. And I went to bed that night and I was like, I think I did 5 dodecahedron in there, because I knew there was a 5 dodeca form. And I was like, I'd never heard of a 6th dodecahedron. And then I woke up and I was like, wait a second, I did 6 colors. There's 6 colors in here. So this is a compound of 6 dodecahedron. Well, I did go look, and there actually is a compound of 6 dodecahedron, but I didn't draw that. So I was wondering, how did I get 6? And what's the 5 dodeca compound look like? Well, to my surprise, the 5 dodecahedron, this is the 5 dodecahedron. I did this model too. It actually is the 6th dodecahedron that I did. Okay, let me just say that again. This is 5 dodecahedron. This is 6. This is the same. These are both the same. So what happened to the 6? Like, where's the 6 in this? Because all that's being shown, if you type in compound of 5 dodecahedron at Wolfram Math, there's not a lot on this form at all. All you get is 5 dodecahedron. But I'm like, well, I had 6 that helped me create this. And I'll show you why there were 6, and why I think that if you're not working with the sacred geometry on your own and you're just going to look at pictures from Wolfram Math to discover these things, they might not have constructed the form in the way I'm doing. They might be leaving out important pieces of the puzzle that are going to be a mystery to you, that they were even involved in the creation of the form. So you just kind of maybe see a kind of end product, and it's possible that you might not see that it was actually connected to all this geometry that was like part of the process, all the way back to like this tiny little form that you could start with, this little cube or dodeca or Icosa dodecahedron, and just keeps building out and out and out, and then you get to this form. Well, that's kind of how I went about the process, but I came up with 6 and they only show 5. So these are the Wolfram Math pictures that I found, the only really ones that I was able to find. There are probably some other ones out there. This is the same model that I was just showing you. I forgot one step here. I forgot to show you that our mystery form was on here. I did put this one over. I like to do this. There's the mystery form, so I could take it off just so you could see that it was hidden. It was hidden so well in there that I forgot to take it off because it gives the vertices just like that. So that was the outline of the mystery form. You could see, in fact, my mystery form I have upside down. Was that mysterious? Let me flip it around. Rotate, rotate, rotate. Okay, yeah, because you see that little pentagon, and I'll get back to where I was going with that in a second. A little pentagon fits right at the bottom, so it's gonna overlap. Now it probably even looks better than I was showing you before, and the sizing is just a little bit off, but you could see that little pentagons match up with those, and the points meet at the center. So there's your compound again. Okay, back to where I was at. So we're back to discovering what happened to the sixth dodecahedron. Now, the sixth dodecahedron is really the central drawing of the dodecahedron in the golden circle seat of life. It's the dodecahedron I've been sharing and drawing. It's just dead center, straight in the middle circle, back to this one, right? And this is the one that's left out from the drawing. This is the one that's left out from the form. This is like the one you need to build off of to get the other ones, at least from a drawing sacred geometry perspective. That is the most simplest way to do it. So this is oriented now to what I call the square orientation, because this would be a cube square right here. And the blue one, I have a blue dodecahedron right on here. So I'm just going to pull that out. Now, from this view, we only see 4 of the faces. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a flat face. 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 spots are facing away. They're flat. And then directly on the other side of this, we have another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this view, you see 4 faces as if it's a solid, the 4 on the back and the 4 around it. And that's the 12 faces of our Platonic solid of the ether, often thought to be the ether. So there it is. Now I'm going to place this over top of our drawing, and the color scheme might not work, but I think you could see that. Well, okay, here's a dodecahedron that they are showing me in their drawing. You see the red one, right? I believe that's red. I'm red-green colorblind, so I get things mixed up, but that definitely looks red to me. I don't know, maybe that's purple, this other color over here, but there's the other dodecahedron coming down over here. And so we've got this kind of whitish gray one over here. Right, you see they're giving the vertices of our form. So really the compound of 5 dodecahedron, I guess is the point I'm going to make, actually gives you the vertices of our 6th dodecahedron, which is in here. Okay, so maybe in construction of this, they're just like, we'll just rotate this around the axis and just get 5. But to me, in my process of going about it, I had to use the 6th dodecahedron to come up with this, because this is the square, this little crisscross is the square of our mystery form. So each of our mystery form has a square in them, like a cross in the square. And each of those have these segments. If you do it without that, then your form isn't going to have that cross in the middle. So you're missing a piece of the information. So it's not really a compound of 6. It is a compound of 5 dodecahedron, just like this. So it's a compound of 5 dodecahedron plus 1. And the one that was left out is really the key one. The key one is the unlocking key to discover the 5. From my exploration of the project with just drawing it and then applying my drawing to build the form. I'll show you the forms of how this got started at the end of the slideshow, but it took a while for me to get to this point because I started off with just truncated octahedrons. This would be that square that I've just described in the middle. We're looking at that view right now of the square in the middle. So this was actually a truncated octahedron. I talked about this in the snowflake one. snowflake video of the golden hexagon face. And then I realized that they actually had 2 dodecahedron in it. So there were actually 2 dodecahedron in that, and I popped out those little sides to put the cube in. And then I had a compound of 2 dodecahedron in this, inside this truncated octahedron with them sticking out. Now, that's just in a 1 octahedron world with a 1 cube. Now, if you have 5 of this, you've got to start to rotate this around in ways to kind of do the 5-fold symmetry. So then that square starts to show up in a lot of different places, and then you get the full complete form. So I'll show you these again at the end, but that's just kind of the slow build out of how I work this. And this golden hexagon faces, there's lots of ways you can do it. Long edges and short edge, 0.618 edges to 1.618 edges. There's so much potential with the golden hexagon for sacred geometry builders. People out there probably know who I'm talking to, because those people who are getting creative with the golden hexagon have a lot to discover that I'm only scratching the surface at. Now, this just a quick slide. Metatron's tetraplex is a video. It's part of, it was an important video I did because it discusses about 30 forms that come out of this tetraplex, which is a 600 cell 4D version of an icosahedron that I found is the template that helps draw a multitude of forms. So this is my idea of an upgrade to the Metatron's cube idea. And now this tetraplex is showing that we have these 5 cubes in a dodecahedron, and this is the compound of 5 cubes creating the dodecahedron. These are the drawings of each of the cubes that will come together. And the reason I'm showing this cube connection is because, remember, now I've got 6 dodecahedron. So my question was, well, are any of those cubes the same? Like, are they actually the same cube, or are they vertices just shared at certain points? Well, they turned out to be 30 unique cubes in this structure. So, I mean, this was kind of mind-blowing to me, because remember, I was saying that I was mostly just thinking about 5 cubes in a dodecahedron. Like I felt I expanded my consciousness pretty good there for a little while. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, I've got 30 cubes in roughly the same volume, same space, 30 cubes, because that's, remember, this back here is a 6 dodecahedron. So we've got 30 unique cubes in there. So that means 60 tetrahedron, just solid tetrahedron meeting together, not all the little tetrahedrons that would be in there as well. So now that's a difference. That's a big difference when you do start doing the math of how many things are in there, because if you eliminate the 6 dodecahedron, well, that means you have 25 cubes. And there's just mathematically, when you're working with numbers, 30, 60, right? Because there's 30 edges in the dodecahedron, icosahedron, 60 edges in the Icosa dodecahedron and the rhombic trichontahedron. So these are numbers that kind of show up regularly. So when you're dealing with 30 cubes, well, all of a sudden you're seeing that that's going to be part of a kind of possible larger pattern with 30 cubes. When I go to 25 cubes, which is what they're saying here, when you have 5 dodecahedron here in this compound, well, you have missing information again, is basically what I'm saying, because now you have 25 cubes, and you might be wondering, is there another dodecahedron in there, or is there 30 cubes? Maybe you probably wouldn't wonder that at all. I mean, I'm probably the only one wondering this because I did this build. And now I'm going to keep going and just show you like how I got there, because that's the really important part of this. Because I didn't just start drawing stuff. Like I said, it was a slow process looking at these little models. But what happened, what I'm discovering, and the Icosa dodecahedron is going to be quite a focus now for the next foreseeable future of a number of videos. Now, the Icosa dodecahedron is kind of like the cube octahedron it is the cube octahedron is this form, right? So this could be either turn into a cube or an octahedron, and if it does both of them, well, then it turns into the rhombic rhombic dodecahedron. So remember, this is the vector equilibrium. This has got the very common form. The outer edges are the same as the edges that go on the inside. A tetrahedron, half of a six octahedron. So very, very, very popular form. Now, this is the counterpart of that, because this is the dual forms working together, cube and octahedron, dual forms. Now, the icosahedron and the dodecahedron, those two are dual forms too, the 20-sided and the 12-sided. And that's what we get. This is the version of the Icosa dodecahedron is like the cube octahedron, 12 pentagonal faces, 20 equilateral, 30 vertices, and 60 edges. See, these numbers start to pay attention to, because this is now, because this is different than the, it's containing the, it jumped from 30 edges from the icosahedron, which has 30 edges, and the dodecahedron, which has 30 edges. Now, when it's become this compound form, it's got 60 edges. Not compound. It's kind of like one could be truncated. You can truncate either into this. So let's take off the mystery form again, just so we could see the Icosa dodecahedron, just showing that it was on there. Now I have these lines in here, and they're important. So here's your Icosa dodecahedron. I have a built one over here too. These are really amazing, amazing form. It's got decagon faces. It's got 10 decagon hoops within this. Now, here's the little circle pattern, just leaving the remnants of the circles, because those are where the base of those pentagons are, right? So what I did to construct this form was pretty much at every intersection of the Icosa dodecahedron at those triangle points, right, where those triangles meet, that's an edge of a dodecahedron. Now, if you do that around the whole thing, an edge of a dodecahedron all the way around, that's how you get your sixth dodecahedron. See, it came off of this Icosa dodecahedron. The underlie was underlying it. And I have just a small little model over there to illustrate it one more time. So you build that it's half the distance, but this is going to be 5 proportion pentagon that's going to be created out of this. And if you do that, once again, to reiterate, around the whole thing, you'll have this little gap that's created here, and that's what creates that little pentagon right there. And then that creates the square face between the star tips. So that was the building process. And this is just going back to my earlier description of just, when you just look at the Wolfram math pictures, it's difficult to see how something like this, right, has an underlying structure that, unless you really know your stuff, that you can look at this and have that eye. But the way I like to work with the geometry is kind of realize that everything is connected through forms that underlie the vertices that you're getting for another form. So there's no just isolated form that's out there. Everything can always have more and more forms underneath it that kind of either inflate or get smaller, and they're constructing the forms through the octahedron, through all the Platonic solids, basically. And so this Icosa dodecahedron, let's explain what this is, because we need to look at the vertices that are created for that. There are 30 vertices in there. And this is still part of Metatron's tetraplex drawing. So I really recommend checking out that video. One simple template allowed me for the first time to even contemplate drawing my compound of 5 octahedra, which then gives me 30 vertices, because 5 octahedra, an octahedron, has 6 vertices, right? So 8 faces, 6 vertices on this. And all I'm doing is rotating that around in a way that's going to give me 4 more vertices, including this one. And when I go all the way around like that, I end up with the 30 vertices. I'm forgetting the fellow's name. Martin stole it. He's not alive anymore, but his one video is just amazing. He calls it the 30 verti. The 30 verti, and he goes into it just the way I do. He thinks it's like very foundational structure to explore. So the 30 verti is these octahedron turned like that. Now, many of us are familiar with a sacred geometry kind of creation story of consciousness was a point of in the center of this. It wanted to separate and divide and moved out to the right, and moved left and right, up and down, forward and back. And then we have our, octahedron that was thought to be the first. And then this consciousness rested back in the center. This is your 7 around 1, 6 around 1, excuse me, 6 around 1, the 7 circles. So you can easily draw this in your hexagon view and the seed of life, right? So there's your seed of life. And you can see here's the, that view of that we're used to seeing. In this Metatron's textureplex, it's turned to the side and integrates a little different than we're used to in the seed of life. But we have this 6 around 1. Now, when you start to think in terms of the compounds of phi-based forms that are created around this, we take that same kind of creation story and then we just add it 4 more times, really. But we still have the same going out, and then all of a sudden we get a more complex structure that's generated from that is now integrating the phi proportion. So these I could still all connect back to the center. All that's happened really is that I have 30 lines of 30 vertices that are coming out of the center, which can be an infinite amount, really. If you're talking about a creation, why limit ourselves to just an XYZ axis? You can have that same XYZ axis coming out in different dimensions. And that's what this 30 verti does, and then gives us the phi proportion and the truncated Icosa Dodecahedron. That could either be dodecahedron or icosahedron. Here it is, just to look at again, the color-coded octahedron here, so you can just focus on one, like the red one here, or this yellow one, and you can see that it's shaped of the compound of those octahedron. This one here coming straight up towards you, and that is it's a real joy to be able to draw that form finally. And then didn't realize it at the time that, I was slowly working up to figuring out how to draw the compound of the 5 dodecahedron plus 1. So that was really quite a journey for me to even get there. We had to work with and get there in the way of being able to draw this with sacred geometry, rather than just realize the form exists that someone can generate on a computer model. But this is something now that I can share, you can integrate, you can draw in with sacred geometry techniques, with the compass and straight edge, the classic style of doing this, which is really the thing that is helping you integrate this. It's nice to look at the pictures and meditate with them, but when you put your consciousness into your compass and you put the needle down on the page and start to work with this, there's a transformation that's happening. You might not like your drawing that's happening. You might, be concerned about how the lines are. It might not be perfect. And those are all of things that in very subtle ways, sacred geometry starts to work on and, help move through different types of little blocks or whatnot. And more often than not, you accept all those little imperfections and you love your work. You love your drawings, and the reflection of you and your consciousness. So let me just, let's have a little drop this one back, because let's just do the mystery form is the compound here. Let's arrange this, send to the back. And there's the mystery form revealed. And I'm very thankful for the Zonepad. To do this drawing, what I had to do was look at this model that I constructed in Zonepad and started to study it in detail and found out how to make the connection points, just as if I had the model built in hand, which I started to construct. So I had bits and pieces of that. So this was more an application of working with 2D to get the dodecahedron right, working with 3D, working with this modeling software, and then integrating and pulling it from that etheric space back into, to reproduce it back into the 2D for the drawing. So it's really quite a process. Now I want to stop the slide share here. I'm going to show you the Zonepad application. And show you what that looks like. So I can rotate that cool form around a little bit. And here it is. So Zonepad is up. So we're looking at it from the Pentagon view. And this is VZome. Sorry, I've been calling it Zonepad the whole time. Zonepad I also work with, but they really make you work. It's an old thing. They don't even do any updates to it. You have to draw or construct it like one piece at a time. This one a little bit easier because you can do multiple. So that would be from the Pentagon view. You could see the little pentagons. Now, check out all the dodecahedrons. So we got the blue one. Now that's our special sixth one, but I can rotate, of course, this to this Pentagon view here. Now, this is where things get interesting because I think there's a lot more going on here that we can do more with this. And Zome is going to limit me to this because it just wants to do one icosahedral symmetry. So if you're a hardcore researcher out there and you've stuck with me and with this one long enough, I'm betting that you're able to turn this all into these size pentagon faces if we did them all off of each of the pentagons that don't have the small pentagon. And then you're going to be getting into lots of cubes, right? You're really going to be constructing something really, really new. And I have to kind of, I guess, leave this up to someone else, or else I've got to figure out how to do more technology. Because Zome Tools won't let me build it like that. And it's really tough to figure out how to rotate this around. So I could get a black one in there. So this is now, let's another small pentagon within the black pentagon there. So that's one dodecahedron. Let me show all six. There's the white one. I get my colors mixed up probably, but here's the white one. There's the black one. I think that's like the maroon red one, kind of a lightish blue one. The blue one, and what is this, like a light green, yellow type one? Light greenish color, yeah. So I believe that's all six of them. So that was a surprise to me. So let me show you the square view. Let's wiggle it into place. It's a little tilted, but there it is. It all lines up. That's a really nice view to work with because you don't see the back of the form is the front of the form. So if I just angle it out a little bit, you can see how you get all that. And these are why I like to work with these three main views, because when you snap them into place like that, the sacred geometry techniques work with that symmetry, radial symmetry that's going on. So there's our decagon version, pentagon on top, 10-pointed star, there, that view. And then we'll just do the hexagon view and move on from this. And there we go. That's that one. Now, there's a lot going on. That's the way I showed all the drawings there, but I'm really approaching many of my drawings specifically from this hexagon view. The other drawings are probably easier to do even, especially the pentagon view. But because this is such a flower of life, seed of life view is so popular in our culture, or not our culture, just historically, so many people are familiar with the overlapping circles like that, and saying that all these Platonic solids of creation are in the Metatron's cube based on flower of life, fruit of life sequence, is really important, in my opinion, to, this will never be discovered in that. And that's kind of sad to me. You won't have any potential to find it in there. You have to add the phi ratio circles. So that's the main takeaway from that. I don't know if you have to, or you don't add phi circles and then you allow some computer to do phi circles for you to draw it. And then you're disconnected even that much further from having a relationship with this in a new way. And I guess I mean KNEW new way. So let's just take a quick look at the models. And so, like I said, I was going to build the whole thing, but it wasn't really necessary just for the slideshow, because then you'd see the back and you wouldn't even be able to see everything that's going on. I love completing the model because then you just don't want to stop, but I got to take apart all these other forms that I really enjoy having around and took a long time to build. So I think, let's just take a look at this real quick. Here's your one pentagon face. So I'm just going to show you where the Icosa Dodecahedron is in this. There's one pentagon of it. You can see that I've got some equilateral triangles that are going to come off that. If I continue those equilateral triangles off this, you'd start to see that I'd be creating that Icosa Dodecahedron. Now, this is the portion that I want you to take note of. This is back to that drawing where I just had the 3 black lines coming off at those nodal points between the 2 equilateral triangles. Well, this is an edge of the dodecahedron, one of them. This is the edge of a dodecahedron, another one, and that's another one. And now this is the dodecahedron, the black balls, those there. Those are the ones that are going to be that central dodecahedron, the one that's left out. Right, that's the 6. That's the 6th, the 5 and 1. That's the 6th dodecahedron. This one, you know, they're just using these, and then that will come over here. This would be another dodecahedron edge coming up to meet here, and then now they're meeting in these vertices to give you the pentagon faces of that. Now I was saying that Zone tool, like here I started to put the square. Remember the mystery form has the square. Well, this is how I was able to easily do the math. I just did it with Zone tools without even having to use a calculator, because you don't need it. When you work with Fire Issue, you don't need a calculator a lot of the time. I mean, in the early days, I used it a lot to figure things out, but now you visually understand, especially if you understand the Zone tool system. Well, if this is 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, if this was a square, well, that diagonal is 2 inches. I mean, root 2. That diagonal is root 2. So that's 1.41 inches. That's just the basics of geometry. Now, I know that this edge is 1, right? And I know that this edge of this pentagon, because this is the 5 portion here, that's 1. This is 0.618. Well, there I go. I just did all the math that I need for the whole form. And of course, because this and this are the same, well, that edge of this here, that's 1.618. But in reality, are these 1.618, 1 and, you know, and if I took my tape measure to it, that reality? No, they're not. But that's how scale invariance works within this. All you need to know really is how to work with sacred geometry and work with the sacred roots, because if I change this measurement to 1.618, I'll look at this number and I'll be like, how's that relate to root 2? You see, if I set it at 1, then all of a sudden this relates to root 2, that relates to 0.618. Okay, so that was a little bit on that. So hopefully this helps, this little model, to kind of show, and I could build the whole thing out. That's very cool because Zone tool allows me to construct this dodecahedron, compound of 6 dodecahedrons. So maybe Franz is watching, and I'll see this on New Geometer soon. It probably beat me to it. I don't know if I'm going to construct it myself, so hopefully someone else will, although I'd love to. I need more Zone tools so I don't have to take apart the other cool stuff. Now, this is going to go to the next level. There's probably a part 2 in this coming up, because I did the same thing with the icosahedron, right? Because the icosahedron also can be a compound, because now we're dealing with a compound of the rhombic tricontahedron. Now I'm throwing a lot more big words around, but remember, that's the icosahedron and the dodecahedron together, these two, 12 and 20, compounding together to create the, where is that guy? Oh, the little rhombic tricontahedron here. Okay, so that one's going to come together and create that one. Now that we can do here, and this would just fit on here like this, and now I have the whole thing together. Now I'm going to have this, the same thing happens. 6 icosahedron. Is a compound of 5 icosahedron. I don't want to do too much of the video because I want to show you the drawings and everything. But the same thing will happen. We're going to get 6 icosahedron out of this, 6 dodecahedron, which really in the books or the websites, they say it's 5 and 5. and those will go like that. And then this, see that pentagon face, going to connect like that. That's turning into the icosahedron, and it's all going to work out. So, okay, great. Well, that was really exciting. I'm so happy I got to share that piece. I've got a gazillion, like a lot of other ideas, other videos. I'm actually jumped ahead of where I was at because this was most prominent, but I'm kind of leaving things behind. So I got to go back and do a lot of other things that I think are really going to be exciting. So if you really like what you're seeing here, probably going to do that icosahedron compound video soon. You can check out that. And the other videos will be coming soon. So lots more to come from New Geometry. I really appreciate you watching. Like I said, please, subscribe, check out the New Geometers Facebook group if you're on Facebook. And if you're not on Facebook, maybe you want to just join that group because I think you might like it that much. And in addition to that, I have an apprenticeship starting with beginners. So really starting at the basics of just how to do the golden circles, how to draw those forms. You can check that out at in the description. There'll be a link there to my website for the apprenticeship. And other than that, I have a Patreon as well, and I'm doing a little bit of work, lessons there as well. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day, and happy drawing and constructing, and enjoy the journey of sacred geometry. Much love and peace.